In this particular project, we're going to look at the addition of text to a 3D model. So we've already created a 3D model, and now we want to add a line of text to it. So as you can see on my screen, I have created a 3D model of a horse. If I look at the 2D view, you can see there he is. There's my 3D preview. So I've got a 3D model of a horse. What I want to do is I want to add an additional line of text to this. Now in this particular project, this is a 12-inch by 12-inch piece of material, as you can see. And I've actually machined the horse to a machining depth of 1/4 of an inch in my 3/4 inch material. You can see that in my 3D view. There's it's a 1/4 inch relief. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my text tool. So I'm going to go down here to click text. And I'm going to select a font that I'm going to use as engraver. I'm going to set my size of my text to 1 inch. And back to my 2D view just for a second. And I'm just going to very simply click on my screen, and I'm going to type in horse. And I'll create that, and now that I've created it, I'm going to move it over here, over above the horse. So I've created my line of text, and I now want to create a machining toolpath for it. So I go up to the project pane and click on Toolpaths. In this case, I'm going to use a V-bit carving toolpath, as is always the case when we're using text or a logo or a line drawing. We typically will want to use the V-bit carving toolpath because it will reproduce the geometry in the text. So it's going to give us the square corners where we want square corners. So it looks exactly the way we see it when we see that font. You can see the vector association. We're going to machine the selected vectors. I'm not going to change the start depth, and we'll just come back and have a look at this in a second. And I'm not going to limit the maximum tool depth. So I'm just going to let the tool determine how deep to machine these letters. I'm going to click to select my carving tool. In this case, I'm going to use a 90-degree V-bit. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to click Calculate. You can see that it calculated the text. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to our simulation. So I'm going to click on Simulation. I've already done a simulation for this particular project, so if I want to do another one, I have to reset my simulation and simulate all toolpaths. And what you'll see is it's going to simulate, first of all, our 3D model. So our finishing toolpath for the 3D model. This was all done on a single path, so there's no roughing toolpath and finishing toolpath. Now there's a fair bit of detail in this horse, so I've set our step over at about 0.08 of an inch, so it's a very tight step over. So the simulation can tend to take a fairly long time because the machining time will take a fairly long time in order to get that level of detail. As we've mentioned in previous videos, it's always a trade-off when you are machining a 3D model. If you machine step over quite wide, you'll find that the finish won't be quite as great. Perhaps it will require a little more sanding. If you machine quite tight step overs, then machining time tends to take a long time, but the result is outstanding. So you can see that we've machined the horse, but you'll notice that our text did not show up. And the reason that our text didn't show up is very simply because we had already machined that area away. If we go into our toolpath, so if we click on the V-bit carving toolpath, you'll notice here we set our start depth at 0, which means we started that toolpath at the top of the material, but that material is no longer there. So if we want to machine text into the newly carved area, or this new flat area, what we need to do is set our start depth at 0.25 inches. And so now what's going to happen is it's going to start the text 1/4 of an inch below the top surface of the material, because once that material has been machined away, we now can go down 1/4 of an inch and start our text there. So we're going to recalculate our toolpath. And once that's done, we're going to resimulate this project. And once again, it may take just a little bit longer to do the 3D simulation on the 3D toolpath. And then what we hope to see is that once it completes that, we should see the text show up in that top left corner, or top right corner, just exactly the way we had designed it. So essentially what we're looking at as we look at this particular function, if you recall in our original 3 starter projects, Project 1, which is the use of the geometry tools, and Project 3, which is importing and machining a 3D model, essentially all we've done here is we've combined those two skills. So we've taken some of the elements of Project 1 and the Project 3, and we've combined them to create this. And as you can see, as we rotate our model, we can see that we have created our, there we go, just needed to make sure I push the button right. So you can see as I rotate it, you can see that we've created the text on the 3D model, and it's exactly what we were looking for.